The first episode of Kamen Rider Geats just aired this past weekend, and I think it's one of the best first episodes in all of Kamen Rider, at least as far as I'm concerned. I think this episode was just a really special introduction to the world of the show. Did just an amazing job of setting you up with ideas and mysteries. Just gives you a little peek behind the curtain of all the things there could be, and at the same time it's almost like it barely tells you anything concrete. Even the first scene of the episode had me intrigued. I don't know if it's just the color grading or just the scenery of a shoreline while it's snowing, but I love this opening. By the time the title hits, it just has this cinematic flair that I just can't help but being completely absorbed by. Geats flipping a coin that reads Caesar on it, and a mysterious woman handing a secret treasure box with a Desire driver inside, saying that, as of today, you're a Kamen Rider. And Geats responds with, "Yeah, I know," in a cocky, self-certain type of way. This character is instantly recognizable. He's confident, headstrong, and he already knows the ins and outs of the Grand Prix. All of the early scenes show us just enough to understand the world and the characters inside of it. An interview with the character Keiwa, who's there for us to project ourselves onto. Giving an interview where he's confident and self-assured. He wants the job. He has an impressive resume of helping different organizations to change the world. But when he's told to tell us more about himself, he blanks. He doesn't know how to answer. He can talk about his ideals and his passion, but outside of the greater good, he doesn't know how to answer what his own personal goals are. He just says, world peace. I love this as a character trait, and especially how it falls into place inside of this first episode. When he says world peace, all of his peers in the interview panel, they just don't know what to say. Because yeah, it is a ridiculous answer, but if not, ultimately true. I can't speak about this to the point of view of a Japanese viewer, but as an American who spends between 60 and 65 hours a week stressing out and trying to find space for myself within the margins of my work week, it's so easy to lose yourself in these bigger picture concepts that workplaces throw to you as an individual. Just wanting to believe that what you're doing every day is working towards a greater goal. Through the interactions in the job interview and the telephone call with his sister, I instantly connected with this character, and I really hope they keep him as the center focus of the series in the same way that they kept him as the center focus of this episode. He's the perfect insert character to explore this world with. There's enough about him that you instantly identify with, so you're already attached, but he also gets to ask all of the newbie questions. While out to lunch, his sister's watching a live stream of a blogger called Neon, an internet idol who's rich but trying to escape her lifestyle and live a normal life. This is such a great opposing view to Keiwa, who's already mentioned that he wants to win the lottery, and his sister tells him, you wouldn't know what to do with it if you did. Neon already has everything that she could want, or at least that's what we're told, but she wants to escape all she has for a normal life. Upon trying to escape, she's surrounded by a secret security force, because she may have privilege, but she doesn't have freedom. You get cuts to a floating platform in the sky with a leaderboard, remarking that the other talent in the competition has not survived, and the 3 remaining candidates are all that's left, asking which one will change the world. You never get a full overview of the competition, instead just getting little small bits here and there about how it works. This is probably one of the biggest curiosities for me. The logo for the Desire Grand Prix looks an awful lot like the logo for Battle Royale. That and the synopsis of this show mixed with like the rise of Fortnite, I think it's easily to think it might be inspired by these things. It reminds me of a lot of media that I already like with similar tones. Things like Gantz, Alice in Borderland, and Darwin's Game all ring bells for me. Keiwa's having lunch with his sister when he sees these barbed wire borders appear. Instantly the door is kicked in and the shop owner is cut down. Once this first episode kickstarts you into the action, it really doesn't hold back. I love the design of these henchmen kind of guys with the robes and the creepy alien yet traditional looking masks. It all just makes me want to know more about both the show aspect and a production aspect. They almost feel out of place in a Kamen Rider series, and almost like something that would feel more at home at like Doctor Who. For me, that's not a bad thing, but I can see it possibly rubbing some people the wrong way. Keiwa's being hunted down while the swordsmen are chasing him with his sister trapped behind a wall, looking on, helpless to assist. People are running for their lives but trapped inside of an arena field, while our Kamen Riders strap on their Desire drivers to come earn points, I guess? This scene is honestly pretty brutal for the most part. They don't show more than surface level wounds, but for being a kid's show, it's pretty graphic for what it is. I mean, this guy pushing someone to the ground and then impaling them is a lot for a Saturday morning Kamen Rider show. Keiwa finds himself hiding with Neon, forcing these two characters together. hopelessly trying to figure out what's going on. They're discovered, cornered, and saved by some Kamen Riders. This is such a cooler idea than just following a character around an episode until he just happens to come upon a driver and transforms. We get to see the Kamen Riders in plain view helping people. For me, these outfits and designs really work. I think the idea of having these items as like power-ups from a video game is just super neat. I've heard a lot of differing opinions, but I find my suit opinions are typically not that popular anyway, but I love these suits. They're mostly just plain black, but having it as a base of all these options to add things to is just a really good starting point for me. I just love these different like mascot type helmets, and the plain black outfits just makes everyone really recognizable in a uniform way. And for me, the simplicity in that really works. I'm usually not in love with big, bulky, over-designed rider outfits. And from a production angle, I think this gives them almost like a limitless freedom to create, allowing them to come up with different suit designs without really worrying about if they're fitting into the overall motif of this or that rider. You also really get to see different fighting styles from the two Kamen Riders. The polar bear is ranged, standing on top of the high ground, while another one with a bull head just rams through a wall, brute forcing his way into the fight. Seeing the bull gathering points on his phone while the polar bear is upset that he stole some of his kills, leaving the audience in Keiwa there just asking questions. But there were 3 Kamen Riders, so where is Geats? He's hanging out in what looks like a lounge receiving tea. He doesn't have to rush, he has an ace up his sleeve. He let everyone else charge ahead while he's laying back, casually pulling out the boost mod for his Desire driver, and summoning a motorcycle that shoots off the platform. Because of course he does, because it's freaking awesome. We get a bit of exposition on top of the building. After being thanked for saving them, the polar bear says, "No problem, I'm a firefighter," while the bull remarks that he must have just saved him for the points. Nobody gives something without expecting something in return. Sizing the two up next to each other and putting their philosophies about the game side by side. One is rational and thoughtful while the other storms ahead. One sees people caught in the game as fodder, and the other as victims that can be saved. When all of a sudden a giant monster in the sky strikes down the polar bear, and the bull is excited because another participant is out of the game. Geats finally arrives at the battlefield and saves Keiwa and Neon in some really impressive fight scenes. If I have one wish for this show, it's to keep up this level of fight design. All the fight scenes have had so much gravity, and the feeling of life lost gives the situation more meaning, showing us from the start that people in this Kamen Rider series can and probably will die. It does ultimately walk it back, at least inside the game, but it looks like innocents can get caught in the crossfire and end up dead. The giant flying monster / castle I actually thought was really cool. It made for a fun like end boss battle. If I'm following what I think the show is telling me, this is the very end of a game where there are only 3 players left, and this is the final boss. I have forever mentioned how much CG in Tokusatsu, and particularly in Kamen Rider, can just rip me out of a scene. However, in this episode of Geats, I think Kamen Rider might have finally hit the balance of just having enough special effect power behind it. I'm sure it's with the more accessibility of things like the Unreal Engine, but I found its blending of models into the environment is way more convincing than it's ever been. It's not always super realistic, but it doesn't yank me out of the scene nearly as hard as it used to. Because a lot of the times when there would be a lot of CG, my eyes would glaze over and I'd just be waiting for it to get back to practical effect fights so that my mind could click back in and remember that it's a fight and I care about it. And honestly, all around, I've just loved the shot composition of this show. This show, more than like Revice or 01, and yeah, I didn't watch Saver, has a tonality to it that I absolutely love. The scenes are beautiful and the visuals really assist with the storytelling. And from a writing perspective, it even has a humor style I prefer. There are some extreme joke reactions in this episode, but they're never so over the top that they stop the scene they're in. It's comic relief that feels really appropriate to the environment. And after all the guys go boom, Geats starts to hit on Neon. It's really awkward, I don't particularly like it. I understand that this is like showing his overconfident side and how he has no regard, and especially in like a Japanese, really restrained, we'll say social context, it feels really uncomfortable. It's not the worst thing in the world, I just hope it doesn't do it in every episode or every interaction with a female character. We're told the world ending, and as a prize of winning, he'll get to change the world. Echoing back to Keiwa's interview in the beginning of the show. We don't really know exactly what getting to change the world means, but everything begins to reset and goes back to normal. I think this is a really good mechanic to use in a show like this. It allows us to have bigger stories that change and manipulate things, but also kind of a way to make it a blank slate again. Because story plots and elements and deaths can be undone, but in a really satisfying way. But I'm really excited to see if they capitalize on this element or let it go to waste as a storytelling device. We see Gates lose the boost thing from his Desire driver, so we won't be able to see him do all these all-out crazy moves right away in the next few episodes. I like this, and I hope it means that they'll take some of the power-up elements and make them unavailable from time to time, giving you really cool avenues of either finding them, winning them, however they end up getting them. Once everything resets, Keiwa wakes from a dream, seeing the boss at the noodle shop who was cut down back alive. He doesn't remember the dream, just the feelings that were attached to it. Then the mysterious woman from the Desire Grand Prix shows up, giving Keiwa, Neon, and a series of other people drivers, welcoming them to becoming Kamen Riders. For me, this is just such a great setup. You get to see the game in full effect with this crazy army running around just slaying people. And then you snap your fingers and it's all just pushed back. They say the end of the world is coming, but I have no idea if that's figurative or literal. But here's the thing. This is a first episode, and I've been burned by first episodes in the past. For this one, I've been able to hold my expectations aside, not predicting what this show might be by its synopsis, and letting this episode tell me what it's going to be and what kind of experiences I can hope to have. And the sales pitch that it just gave me is great. If the question is, do I want to watch this for another 40 to 50 episodes, just to see where the plot goes? The answer is yes. It's the biggest yes I've ever given to a first episode of Kamen Rider. Something about this episode to me just feels fresh and different. I love following Keiwa as the center of the story, and I really hope they continue to use him as the main focal point throughout the series. Geats is a super cool character, and I do want to see his character fleshed out more. And yes, I want to see how he became the overly cocky, lady swooning person he is. But I really want them to explore that through the story of Keiwa. And if it doesn't, and we just follow Geats around in the next episode exploring his backstory, and it continues like any other traditional Kamen Rider show, that will be okay. I'll be okay with that. If this was just a newbie allowing us as the audience to see the Grand Prix from the ground up, I can live with that. But I think it might be weaker storytelling overall. I think all of these characters are interesting. Geats, the bull, the polar bear, the Grand Prix lady, and Neon. I think there's a real mystery and story to Neon that I really can't wait to explore. She has a determination in her eyes when she gets the Desire driver. I imagine it represents the power to escape that they explored at her highlight point in the beginning of the episode. This episode gave me so many things that I love that I'm really worried it might not be able to hold up that pace and deliver on all the promises that it just made me. I'm not going to be doing videos on every episode, and they're certainly not going to be this exhausting, but I'm going to be watching. So how about you? This is a new series. Any crazy theories or facts that maybe I didn't fully understand on my first watch? Any cool expectations of the show? Please leave a comment because I'm so excited to hear what other people think of this series. The good, bad, and ugly. I'm High C, and I hope you keep watching.